Hello, lovely people. It's been a while, and I'm not going to rush through this video because I just recorded a 30-minute video and realized that I had it cropped slightly wrong in my software, so the bits you needed to see, you couldn't see. Great start for the first video in a year. You can tell I'm completely out of practice. So what I wanted to do was an update for 2024 about getting started with Lidar GIS software for metal detectorists and metal detecting in general, because I've done a few videos in the past. You guys love them, but they're a little bit dated now, and I've noticed that there's been a bit of a flurry towards some of the old original videos, like Caris, for example, which is great for creating like a really pretty LiDAR picture, but in practical terms, it's not good enough. It doesn't, how do I put it? If you're building a picture about a permission, then you can't take all the photos that you need to build that picture. It's pretty one-dimensional in terms of where you can go with it. So that's why I looked into QGIS, and that's why I initially taught on that as well. But things have changed. We've moved on with technology a bit since. How you do things has changed a fair bit, and I wanted to do something to summarize the sort of basic level getting started that should help you all out with your permissions. So first of all, if you haven't already got it downloaded, and I presume you don't, is to head over to qgis.org and download the latest version for your platform. It's quite big, it's about a 1.2 gig download, but the software itself is pretty good in terms of depending on how big your files are, and I do have some files kicking on about 80 gig, some of the big ones, but you can run this software on a Raspberry Pi, believe it or not, a little single board microcomputer, and so you can get away with a fair bit, and most computers are going to let you play to a degree. So get this downloaded. I've already got it installed, obviously, which is a good thing because I suffer here with rural broadband. Once you've installed it all, head over. You won't have a screen like this. You'll have like a splash screen, starting screen. And when you get there, what I would suggest doing, very first thing, is changing some settings, especially for those in the UK. And that's where predominantly I'm going to be aiming for here. So you guys in the UK, there'll be a couple of settings to change. If you're elsewhere in the world, same applies, but you just need to find your own settings for your country. And the same goes with the LiDAR as well. I'll try and provide some links below to help you out and to get you started in your country. There's a couple of good resources to find LiDAR data, but this video is going to mainly focus on the UK. So from QGIS, go into settings and options. And what we need to set is the CRS. So this is the like grid system that's being used by QGIS, and we need to set it from its default, which is usually 4326, and I'm going to set it to British National Grid, the 27700. I want that to be the default CRS here, and I want it to be the default CRS for all layers. Then once you've done that, absolutely restart the software, otherwise you might run into some issues. It's a bit funny sometimes. So once you've restarted, I want you to create a new project. You can go project new, or you'll have a button on the screen say new project, and you will get probably something like this. Before we can get started, we need to set up our canvas, if you like. So let me just make that full screen a second. You just double click at the top bar here. There's two panels that we need on the left, and the one on the right will come later, but the two we need up are browser and layers, and they're really easy to find. You just head up to the view layer here, scroll down to panels and select browser, and do the same again and select layers. So we've got both of those in on the left hand side. We're pretty much ready to start. But before we get going, we need to go and grab some data. So here in the UK, we're really lucky because the Environment Agency have a service which isn't currently working. Let's try that again. The Environment Agency allow like completely open source, the downloading of LiDAR data at pretty good resolution across the whole UK. Some areas are more blessed than others, like you can get a resolution of 50 odd centimeters, but the average is probably 1 meter, and that's pretty good to get you started. I'm going to look at an area called Silchester, which is an old Roman walled town just north of Basingstoke. For no apparent reason, just it crossed my mind, and I thought I'll have a look around. I've never looked around it before this day, but what I'm going to do is grab this tile, and you can see all of it's gridded up. I think it's 5 kilometers squared. Could be wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments. And this contains the data that we want to get hold of in each square. But I'm going to grab 2 squares, and there's a reason, because quite often you'll find that a permission bridges 2, or you want to look at a bigger picture. So you often will be looking at more than one data set. So all you need to do is pop over to Draw Polygon, make the clicks across the screen, click Get Available Tiles, and then there'll be lots of different options. Don't panic. The main one to go to probably is a composite DTM or DSM. Now, a DTM is a digital terrain map. That's not true at all. It's digital terrain model, and what that does is that strips away all of the vegetation and all of the buildings, so you get to see the base earth, if you like. And you also have DSMs, which are digital surface models, which include things like trees, hedgerows and buildings, etc. I tend to use a mix of both, but DTM is usually the one I end up going to more, so I'll focus on that for this one. And you'll see there's different versions. So we've got the composite, which is kind of a mishmash of all of them. Then we've got LiDAR tiles here. They tend to be older tiles in most parts of the UK, which isn't a bad thing. The only downside to it is some of the data can be incomplete, especially on the older sort of data sets. But obviously with farming over the years, a lot of sites, a lot of features do fade away with the plough, so it's worth having a look sometimes at those older data sets too. You can run as many as you want and drag them into QGIS. But for this one, same with the National LiDAR program, but they tend to be a bit more modern, and this composite is going to be somewhere in the middle. So we're going to go for that. At 1 meter resolution, just go for the best one you can possibly get. Some areas are blessed with 50 centimeters, so if you can, grab it. When you're ready, download all. That'll download a couple of zip files. It'll take a little while. They're about 70 megabytes each. And once you've got them downloaded, unzip them, and what we're going to do is we're going to drag them into QGIS. Sorry, I was trying to remember where the hell I put them. So I'm just going to double click to take it out of full screen mode. Oh. These are those 2 files here and here, 2 directories. So if I grab the first one, which is that one there, same process for Linux or Windows, and that one there, the 2 largest files in each. And we've got our core data in. But first of all, it's quite hard to see where this is in relation to other stuff. Like if I was looking for my permission, where would it be? Well, probably one of the things you want to do is get some base map services into QGIS. You'll see I've got a ton of them. I use them a lot, but probably the most useful is the Google Satellite Hybrid. And I'm just going to drag that layer over now. And what I'll do is I'll put a link below with the little bit of code snippet that you need to pop in so you can map this to. So there, I can see exactly where I am. It's Silchester Roman City there, look. And, right, there it is. I'm just about making it out. But we've got these 2 blocks with 2 different lots of shades. And that's not very good if you're trying to do something that crosses over them. So what we could do with doing is merging them into one block. So the way we do that is go up to processing, go to toolbox, and type in merge. Now I use it a lot, so it's going to come up there, but for you it'll probably be down here the first time you do it. So grab that. Then we need to hit the three dots here and select our input layers. Not the Google Satellite Hybrid, but the two digital elevation models. And then click OK. And then save it to a file. You'll see that I've already got it, so I'm going to call it Silchester 1 meter 2022 V2 because I've already got one in there. Click save. Now, quirk of a Mac, for some reason it chucks the menu behind the whole thing, so you have to click back in to grab it and then just click run. Excuse me. And there we go. It's merged those two files. We can now get rid of these two. We don't need them anymore. So we can right click and remove those. And here's our Lidar data. And we can stick on Google Maps behind if we want to see how it corresponds to what's there. But it doesn't look like Lidar. A lot of you have probably come from apps like Lidar Finder, possibly NLS, maybe Archi UK, and you're thinking, well, this doesn't help me at all. So how do we get it looking like Lidar data, and better? So how we do that is highlight the file we just created, the merged file, and then there's a little paintbrush here, which is the styling panel. So click that, and you can see up here it says single band grey. And what we want to do is we want to click that and change it over to a hillshade. Now suddenly it's starting to look like that classic LiDAR data that you see online. And that's fine, that's great. But what that online LiDAR data doesn't do is, one, well, it's typically set to a Z factor of 1 like this, which means that everything is quite sort of squinty, hard to see, which is fine. I mean, that's technically how it should be, but to find archaeological points of interest, sometimes you need to bump that up to be able to see more. And two, it's always going to be fixed because it's an image tile. The image doesn't change from this, whereas when you're dealing with an elevation model like this, imagine it's like a big 3D model. We can change the way we look at the whole model across the whole lot, and that's what this is here, the azimuth. You can see there's a little circle inside the big circle. Well, that's telling you the light direction of what we're looking at. And if I move that, you'll see the whole image change because we've changed where the light source shines from, and certain features will show up more according to the direction of the light. And you can also tweak the altitude. Now, typically you don't need to for most places. If I had a very hilly site, I'd probably drop that or heighten it up so that it's a bit more flat, one-dimensional. Otherwise you'll have really black spots, really white spots. But typically most of the time don't need to adjust it. This one here, however, the Z factor, well, this is how you're going to make those features pop out of the canvas. And this is what you can't do online with those services that I mentioned earlier. So if we pop that up, typically, depends on the area. I usually work about to a 6. Might be more, might be less, depending on how hilly an area is or how the features are in the landscape generally. But 6 is a good start. And you can see straight away we've gone from 1, which is typically the kind of LiDAR you see online, to 6. A lot more is in focus. We can see things happening. But there's one thing we do need to tweak. When we zoom in, you'll see that we get like this weird artifacts kind of thing happening. That's because QGIS defaults to this nearest neighbor as the resampling method. We want to change that to bilinear for both. And that does mean it blurs slightly, but it's just easier to read and look for features across a landscape. And like I say, we can change the azimuth, and as we do, like here for example, this line here is almost faded out. I didn't see what it was. I didn't have a look. It could be a fill boundary, something like that. But if we move that over here, it becomes very obvious that there's something there. Then it fades out again, and now we're seeing these field markings across here. And that's the beauty of being able to interact with the model, which you can't do with those online services. So what else is going to help you give context in a landscape? Well, it's probably height and elevation, being able to see that at a glance. And again, that's really easy to set up and do. So we've got our model here. So first of all, let's go over, click that model, right click it and create a duplicate layer. We're going to call this second one here, right click again, rename it, and we're going to call it color. Simple as that. And we're going to switch it on. If we scroll back up, instead of Hillshade at the top, we're going to change it over to a single band pseudo color in the layer styling. And you can choose a color ramp that suits you. I quite like turbo. It's obnoxious, but to me, at a glance, I can see what's happening. But you can't see it here yet. What we can do with all layers in QGIS is you can layer them one on top of the other on top of the other by changing the blending mode. So from normal, going to change that to a multiply. And suddenly we have Lidar data on top of height elevation data in the form of color. Now it's not perfect. It does need some tweaking, but at a glance straight away I can see these are likely going to be river routes where it's blue. Blues are your lowest, and the high points are in red in the landscape, and anything else is in between. But say basically it works that out across the whole scene and then gives you the average. But say you were working tight in here, you might want to tweak those settings, and you can do that over here with the minimum maximum. The minimum is the elevation above seawater, and as is the maximum. So if I thought that the blue was bleeding too high into the landscape there, I could drop that down to 40, let's say, and that doesn't look too bad, maybe 38. And if I thought 110 wasn't high enough, I could make that a bit higher, so this isn't classed as high as the other. You can basically mess around, tweak it to make it work for you. But straight away it helps me read a landscape much better than before. So that's adding colour. The next step, and I'm not going to go into how you find all these features. You can watch other videos, you can watch my other videos and get that. But it's pretty obvious if you're going to look into a specific area. This is the hill fort. This is the Roman town itself. But if I grab that Google layer a second again and zoom out, you can see pretty easily where your Roman road is that comes into that that walled city there. But, and I saw this straight away on the Lidar, if I turn that off, do you see anything else? You might not yet. But let me just tweak this. And across here is another road, which you can't see on the modern Lidar. It's not obvious at all. Sorry, not on the modern aerial satellite photography, but on the Lidar, with a bit of tweaking, not only that road, you can see others too, but that looks like a Roman road that also leads into the fort and changes angle and moves up. Again, something you probably want to look into, but this is how you find those features. You find old field boundaries, you find other areas to investigate. And the next thing that's going to help you to find those things is called a slope shade. Now, where digital elevation models like this and how we've done a hill shade can help by changing the light angle bouncing off of the model, a slope shade works slightly differently, and in that it creates a model based on the height elevation data all the way through. So the slopiest parts are going to be white and the flattest parts are going to be black. And what that helps you do is find sites of likely occupation, because if someone's going to stay somewhere, live somewhere, they're going to want a pretty flat area. you can find things like foundations. I've found hill forts, things like that. Not just hill forts, like Roman fortlets and other stuff like that that were previously not known, and you can use this to help find that. So in order to create that, pop up to processing, go back to toolbox, and type in slope. Again, it's coming up in my recently used because I use it all the time. But just grab the one under the GDAL, it'll be there. And leave everything there as you want. Save to file, and I would also suggest keeping a folder of all your working files. I've already saved this. I'll just call it Silchester Slope for now. I've already saved this working file, but I should have recommended earlier that you save your project and save that file in your whole working directory. Now you notice, like I said before, quirk of the Mac, when I've gone to do it, it's disappeared. It's gone behind. So I'll just grab that, run the slope, and this is what you'll get. It looks really weird, but it's very easy to rectify. Just close down that processing toolbox, and this is your height elevation data. We've gone from 0 to 73. I think it's the degrees in terms of how sloped the slope surface is. So if we change this down, and I would recommend usually about a 6, but tweak either side of it depending on your area. I'm going to change this to a 5, possibly a 4. And we can see now, this is the walled Roman city of Silchester. Look how much flatter that is compared to the surrounds. So if you saw, and you're not going to just grab a big old city like this, I get that, that's not going to happen. But you can see straight away that's an area of flat. And if we're getting tighter, we can probably find other areas that may warrant further investigation, especially for your kind of permissions, etc. I'm going to actually drop it down to 3 because it's pretty flat as an area. Just want to tweak that a little bit. And this is what you need to learn to do, how to tweak as you move along, what suits an area, what doesn't. And suddenly we've got this. Now, I don't know what it is, no idea. Looks like it might have just been flattened out as it's been heavily trafficked, but you never know. If I switch off the slope, and we'll have a look, see if anything comes up when we have a look around it. It's possibly something there. It's weird the way it's flattened out there. I definitely want to have a look over that if that was on my permission. And like here as well, there's another little feature that pops out with the slope because of the way it works. And this is what you find. You find these little points. Why is it sloped all the way around here and we're absolutely black flat in the middle there? So not obvious straight away. And this is what you find yourself doing. This is how it works. And actually, look, if I stop there, possibly something here, definitely a couple of bits here and some features in that field, but that looks like there's a run that runs across both fields there. When I say run, I mean like a pathway or something like that. You can see the old one there, look, really, really super old, because of how blurred and how buried it is, if that makes sense. Looks like it's been ploughed out 100 times. But if I bump up the Z factor, and I don't always recommend doing this, it's handy if you're trying to see one thing, but don't leave it there. Oh, there we go. And the reason being is because you can end up finding things, for instance, in the plough marks rather than things that are actually there. You start seeing things. But slightly off of that flat spot, up here, maybe I got lucky, but it does look like there's something here, and it does look like there's something potentially there as well. Again, I'd want to look into it further. Moving around, changing the light angle, helps confirm if it is a thing or if it's a trick of the eye, because if you can see it on a different angle, then it's likely going to be there. So there's something there worth looking into. Anyway, that gives you the general gist. So what else can help with your research? Well, old maps. I use old maps all the time. And the easiest and fastest way to get old OS maps into QGIS is to use something called Map Tiler. A lot of you would have used the National Library of Scotland NLS maps, 6-inch, etc. Well, they recommend using Map Tiler if you're using it for this kind of service. It's completely free. They do have like a API limit. I can't remember what it is, but I've never hit into it, and I use it a fair bit. So head on over to maptiler.com and get yourself set up with an account. And once you've got yourself set up, you can come into this section, pop into tiles, and then they've got tiles for around the world, but they've got particularly a lot for United Kingdom. And you can see there's a couple of very decent maps here. The 1937 map is a really good one for pinpointing well sites and water courses. It makes it very obvious in a map, so I use that one a lot. Just be aware it's slightly off on the georeferencing though, just a word of warning. The best one though, the absolute one I go to all the time, is the 6-inch, this one. So we're going to click into that, and you'll see there's a few different things you can do here. There's an embeddable viewer, we don't need that. Open layers leaflet and raster tiles with tile chasing or XYZ, and we're going to use the XYZ tiles. So we're going to copy that. We're going to come back into QGIS, and you see in your browser there's something called XYZ tiles. So to add a new service, you just right click, new connection, title it OS 1900 6-inch or whatever you want to call it, and then paste in your URL and then press OK. Now I've already got it in there here, so I can show you exactly what it does. But if I scroll down here, drag it in, and bam, straight away we have a rectified map. All georeference for you, so you can cross-check. Say you find a path across a field and you're like, oh, what's that? And then you can look and oh, actually it's an old footpath or something like that, so maybe that's what I want to look at. Is it on a more modern map? No. Well, I might want to go and have a look at that space. It's a really great way to quickly check off some historical things. And also, if this doesn't suit you in its format like this, say you I really wish I could see it overlaid on the bottom, it's the same as what we did here, where we multiplied so we could show the colour. We can do the same on this. We can multiply and layer it over the top of anything. It doesn't have to be this. It could be, if I drag the Google Maps, it could be laid over Google Maps. If you can't read it, you can do things like invert the colours. Now I know that's gone black, but all we need to do there is take it away, change it from multiply to like screen, and then you'll see it layered over a Google map. So there's plenty of different ways you can interact with these maps and get them set up how it works for you. But not all maps are available online. There's a good selection, but they're not all available. Sometimes though, you might find yourself finding something in a book or something like that and wishing you could have that map on here. Well, you can do that too. We need to do something called georeferencing. So I grabbed a map out of a book earlier of Silchester, and I want to georeference that and add it across the top of the map here. So in order to do that, what we need to do is go into raster, then georeferencer, which is, it used to be a separate application, so it does look a bit weird, like it's completely separate. It's built in now, but it still kind of runs separately if you like. And then we just click on that one for opening the raster, and I'm going to grab this one here, map 2. And you see there's a couple of points there, so I'm going to delete those because I've already done this once. Now usually if you had a map and you were trying to georeference it, I'd pick a point at the bottom left and a point at the top right, or vice versa, to georeference it across an area. Not really possible in this one because the shape of it. So I'm going to pick a point here and a point here. So if we... Actually, I'm going to get rid of the satellite. We're going to go back to the Lidar model. So this little noggin here is this little noggin here. So with the add point selected, we're going to click once on there. Then we're going to select from map canvas and we're going to click the corresponding point here. Again, it's doing that weird Mac thing. Just make sure you OK that. It should be fine on a Windows PC, that part. Then I'm going to select the hand, scroll down. I'm going to choose this little kink here if you like. You can still zoom in, zoom out, do all of that while you're here. So I'm going to pick up that tool again, the add point tool. Click there. From map canvas. Click roughly there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Obviously, the more accurate you are, the better, but for the demonstration purposes, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to click play. Now, if sometimes it has a little paddy and says transform not available. Helmet and Linear are very similar models. If you swap between them, you'll typically find that it will work. So I'm changing from Helmet to Linear. Next time it might not work with Linear, so I'll change it back to Helmet. But ultimately, they do the same job, if you like. And so I've changed it over. I'm going to press play. And that's going to rectify. This one isn't going to work, I don't think. Is it? No. So that one didn't work quite well. And I think that is because it was Helmet. Right, okay. Let's try and rectify it again as... Oh, no, as Helmet, not Linear. Let's try that. There we go. That's what we want. So Helmet is the one you want. Sometimes you have to swap out of it, swap back in. But that's exactly what we want. So it's georeferenced it and it's added it to the map for us. You can see it's pretty accurate over the top there. Got these horrible black bits, but we can get rid of those. We just right click the layer. We're going to click properties. There's a bit called transparency. And we'll just put a no value of 0 in there. That gets rid of that. And again, like everything else, if you wanted to say overlay it, you could totally overlay that map with Lidar and anything else and look at the two together. So that's pretty much all the maps wrapped up, if you like. Always save your project. The next thing is identifying and recording things you might want to go and take a look at. So in order to do that, we're going to create a vector layer just for those targets. So helps if I explain what I'm doing. So there's a little symbol over here, almost like in a V, and that's the one we want to select. That's a new shapefile layer. If you can't see it, just right click anywhere on the empty grey bit and make sure the panel is up. And for the life of me, I can't remember which panel it is. I think it's the digitizing toolbar. If it's not, it's the vector toolbar. So it wasn't the vector one. It must have been the digitizing one. No, I'm making it up as I go along. I think it's up by default anyway. But I honestly can't remember which one it is. Didn't want that. Let's get rid of that. So, create this layer. Again, let's call it targets this time. Make sure it's selected you've selected or it selected your particular working folder. Leave the file encoding. Change the geometry in this one for line string. I do also use point if I'm just recording singular points, but often I'm tracing an item, so I tend to do line strings. It's defaulted to British National Grid, which is what I want. I'm just going to call it targets. And then click OK. And it's created us a layer called targets. Now, in order to add a target, you need to click the edit button, which has disappeared, so I must have had one of those menus wrong. Hang on then. Yes, so I just added it back in, so I need that pencil icon there. And then I'm going to click this one here to start drawing my targets. So obviously you're not going to dig a Roman city, but I'm going to err on the side of caution and just move out, and we're going to just randomly trace something. Let's say this field, or there's an asset in this field that you want to look at. So with the pencil highlighted, we're going to select this one, and I'm going to draw around the target that I want to investigate in the field. Once you've drawn around your target, you right click and then press OK. And you can see, not very obviously, but it has traced. There we go, that's better. It's traced a little target there. And you can add as many as you want. Let's say this is a target I want to look at. I can trace it very badly. Right click, press OK. Now once you've got all your targets added, you need to click the pencil again and save the layer. Otherwise you may lose those targets, so it's important you do that. And once you've done that, you can export them for your phone. It's really easy. All you do is click your targets layer, right click, export, save feature as. Now there's lots of different formats. I use GPX and KML, mix of both, so I can load them up on various different software on my phone. But for this purposes, I'll do KML, and that will load with Google Earth on any mobile phone and show you can put yourself straight over those targets. So targets Google, let's say. This is why I should have clicked that first. Oh, it has saved it, but it's trying to save it to my hard drive. So always click that and change it to your working folder. Layer name targets Google, that's fine. And then I'm going to click OK. It's going to give me an option as to what I want to add into that KML, and it is those targets there. Add those layers, and there's targets Google. And that's it. I'm going to remove that from here now. It's saved it, but say you wanted to get that up on your phone, just email yourself that file from your working folder. Just send it over to yourself in an email or WhatsApp or whatever. And I've got Google Earth installed, so if I double click it, those files we just added should automatically load up. And should take you in. And it should load very slowly. Right, because I did two targets quite a way away from each other. It wasn't obvious where they are, but I can see one just here. That's one of the traces we've just done. And obviously on your phone, you can georeference yourself to make sure you're over the top of those targets. Oh, it's going to be... I want to find the other one now. Can't see where I can... Oh, there it is, over there. So yeah, you can put yourself straight on those features which you have found to investigate further. Well, that's pretty much about it. I've been banging on for long enough for an intro. Hopefully that gets you going in 2024. And if you've got any comments or queries, please feel free to drop them below. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe for any more updates, which hopefully I'll be doing a few more of. And I'll catch up with you all soon.